Welcome back, everybody, to Double Down with Breslo, where we cover the business of sports betting, the #1 podcast in the world of sports betting. This is Jim Breslo, and we've got another great guest for you today. It is Jamie Mitchell, coming from across the pond, Birmingham, England. He is the founder and CEO of Low6, and covering an area of sports betting that we haven't covered yet, and that is the no-wager sports betting, free-to-play games, and becoming a very, very important aspect of the business. In fact, just saw a big ad, I think it was FanDuel, talking about millions of dollars in free play that they're giving away. Jamie, welcome to the program.
Hey, great to be here. Thanks for having me.
I got to start with the obvious question, and that is Low6. What does that mean?
Yeah, it was, I wish I could go back and turn back time, but we effectively had our very first game, which was a free-to-play game, which was a game we called Low6. The idea was you would pick 6 events to have the least amount of goals in soccer over the course of that day. So if you like to win Low6, you would want 6 0-0 draws, which would give you 0 points. And the idea was the person with the least amount of points would win that particular contest. And it shows how green I was to sports betting, because I didn't really understand that people like to bet the over, not the under. So it was a terrible prop in the first place. But yeah, that's how it came about. And the game started to get quite a bit of traction over here in the UK. And so as you do, you name the company after that first game. And lo and behold, 5, 6 years later, here we are, still with the name after our first ever game.
Yeah. Well, now you've got a good story to tell with the and fond memories of your beginnings. I don't know. I kind of think unders is interesting because it's never over. You know, once a game goes over, there's no reason to watch anymore. So the under keeps you engaged.
I would love to say that's why we thought about it as well. It was quite an interesting game, actually. We had a lot of rights holder clubs over in the UK who we made their official apps for them. So, you know, various football teams or soccer teams over in the UK. And the game, when we put it inside the soccer team's app, started to get more and more traction, more so actually than the news or the team news that was sort of presented on those apps. And yeah, we started to really see some traction with this game, and people seem to love it because every goal that went in mattered. And yeah, it certainly took off, and that's kind of how the company was born. Really, we saw the traffic and we saw the interest, and particularly interest from iGaming providers who were certainly looking for ways to engage with fans, and free to play start to really tickle their imagination.
Yeah, I love those bets that with a single bet you kind of are paying attention to every game. I guess actually what I'm thinking of, I don't know if you're a golf fan or not, but when I bet on a single golfer to win a tournament, no matter who I'm watching on the screen, I'm now rooting against that guy because I know I've got the other guy. So, you know, one simple bet that puts a lot of things in play.
Yeah, totally
so
agree.
what caused you to even come up with this idea of free to play at that time?
I think it was, we started to see the operators over in the UK, particularly, it was a more mature market than America was, really starting to, you know, I suppose, look for more value in terms of how they acquired customers and get a lower cost of acquisition. When you've got 20,000 people going through a full registration journey, you know, sometimes KYC, etc., to play a free-to-play game, then to convert them to that next stage where they have their first sort of paid bet, if you like, was a very low frictionless entry into free to play, into real money gaming. And I think that low CPA, the days of huge linear TV ads, were starting to phase out. More regulation in the UK around when you could advertise, etc. And suddenly actually working with the rights holder, having a free to play game, converting them that way was a very cost effective way to do it. And I suppose what we saw and thought about was how would that convert then into the States, which at the time was, you know, the PASPA repeal, etc., was happening, and there were states starting to legalize. And we very much felt that sportsbooks, whilst they were spending huge amounts of money at the time on customer acquisition, eventually would really want to double down into what does lifetime value look like, and how do we, you know, attract those customers for a lower cost of acquisition. And that's where we felt free to play would really play a big part in their journey. So we quickly tried to have meetings over in America, and started to invest in a team over on that side of the pond so that we could double down on it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So when you talk about trying to bring in new players and you compare offering a free-to-play game versus say a deposit bonus, deposit $100, we're going to give you $100 in free play. How do you compare those two things?
I think there's really high intent with somebody who wants to, if we take a classic pick'em, for example, free-to-play pick'em, typically there's very high intent for somebody to go through a registration journey to want to play that particular free-to-play pick'em, often with not huge financial rewards on it. Some of them are different, where you can win $1 million if you get a perfect bracket or something like that. But there's very high intent, and then you can actually match, a deposit bonus into that free-to-play player as well. So, typical example would be you make your picks on a free-to-play game, up pops the call to action to say, did you know if you place those picks with bookmaker A today, let's just use FanDuel, a $10 bet would return, $15,000. And by the way, here's a $50 free bet. It starts to become quite compelling for people to cross over. And I suppose all of that is underpinned by the data as well. So we track all of those data points to find out who is high intent, who people's favorite players are, when they like to be on their phones or their tablets or whatever, looking at those offers. So, it's all very, I suppose, holistically makes a lot of sense for an operator to think about free to play as top of the funnel.
Mm-hmm. Is there any legal challenges associated with it? I mean, concerned that it's considered gambling, or you're working in jurisdictions where it doesn't matter anyway?
No, I think there's all the normal legal considerations around, making sure people playing the games are the correct age, brackets, etc. But they're very much is there's safety, I suppose, at the heart of everything we've done, really, so that you'll never find an under 18 playing these games, or under 21, depending on the jurisdictions. And then absolutely, to go through and place a bet with an operator, they have to go through the full KYC process and actually pass the operator's onboarding. So it's akin to signing up to a sports book, so no real difference there. But it's very, it's very highly regulated industry, as and we have to stick to all of those guidelines.
Well, and you said that you guys are the free-to-play provider for the NHL in the U.S.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, so the National Hockey League and Low6 have been working together now for about 18 months, just going into our sort of third year almost. So yeah, we provide all of their free-to-play. So we do pick'ems for them, we do brackets, all-star fan votes. Yeah, really, really great partner, and very different. It's not focused on betting; it's more on engagement, really. How do we keep a hockey fan engaged through, the Stanley Cup, for example, or the playoffs? And we really like the fact that Low6 works with brands and leagues as well, because holistically, again, it gives us not just an iGaming viewpoint. We focus heavily on gamification as an engagement tool, not just a conversion tool. So when you put the two together, what you like to think is that you've got a very holistically sound product that looks at, it's great at engaging, it's great for converting and call to action, and as I say, brings big data to the operators who potentially can market to that sort of database when they'd like to, with the partners they'd like to.
Right. And the NHL is an example of how good this can be, just bringing in people that, into their website, into their ecosystem, even if it's not a gaming site. NHL is not bringing them in so that they'll become gamblers, correct?
Correct. Yeah. And good example of that. Can't talk specific numbers, but, 7 figures of users placing a Stanley Cup bracket with them through our game, and multiple millions of votes and an all-star fan vote. None of that's to convert to gambling. That's all around engagement and, adding some value, really. So one of the games that we do for the guys at the NHL would be a bingo game. So it's a prop where you don't need any knowledge about hockey. The bingo card has various results that might happen during, say, Winter Classic. Player X to get a point, player Y to get a foul. All you simply do is come back to your bingo card, and you're hoping that some of those events happen in a line, horizontally, vertically, diagonally, whatever it might be. Get those right, and you get entered into a prize draw to win a signed jersey. Things like that, just add value to the user, to the viewer, to the fan, and keep people engaged throughout the hockey match.
Mm-hmm. I'm a lawyer, so my head often goes to the legal side of things, and I know it can be tough to navigate. So just one more question in that regard. So for instance, in California, where we don't have legal sports betting, you're not, it doesn't require any payment for your game. So presumably should be a no-brainer that it's legal. However, people can make arguments to say that, well, you're giving up a lot of valuable information by signing up for this thing that is consideration for it, and therefore it is gambling. I'm just curious, have you guys run across that concern at all?
Yeah, I think we work actually. We've certainly worked with excuse me, people like the LA Chargers, and we did a free to play game for those guys. Very much again, data capture. You have to go through a California piece of sign up for preferences for each user and all the data that you're collecting on people, etc. But again, in the states where fantasy is legal, for example, perhaps there's an opportunity in those kind of examples to say, do you want to play underdog fantasy? You played a picks game, for example. So I think as long as the user preferences sign up are correct and you do the diligence with the lawyer, etc. There's no legal framework that says you can't you can't play free to play games. There's no cash reward for winning these things. So absolutely, we certainly feel comfortable that we stick within the parameters.
So considering that NHL and the Chargers, for that matter, are not trying to turn these into gamblers, what is the benefit for them? Why do they want to do this?
I think data really sits at the heart of everything. I was quite compelled with the amount of data that you can sort of capture from a user of any kind of game, really, be that Candy Crush all the way through to free to play props with sports, and I think we add value in ways that partners just really value the data that we provide on the users, and the users understand that the currency they give up to enter these free to play games to win a potential signed jersey, etc., is their data. And so capturing sometimes hundreds of data points on users is extremely important for sports franchises, and I think sports franchises, as we talk about, are becoming more and more aware that actually data isn't just an email. It's far more than that. It's what device does somebody use? When do they like to use a device? When should I not contact them? When should I? What should I contact them about? That's the kind of contextualized data that you kind of want as a franchise, rather than just email, first name, last name.
Well, at the end of the day, the Chargers are trying to sell tickets. The NHL is trying to sell tickets,
merchandise, tickets, subscriptions to TV. It's all out there, isn't it, these days? And the more you can understand about your customers, the better. And I think that's that's admirable, actually, because there are some people that don't want to be contacted. And what you might see from an old franchise is just spam kind of email arriving. Well, I think this gets you to a point where actually the message you receive, we have a saying in our business, which is right message, right person, right time. And if the person doesn't want a message, that's great too. We don't want to be spamming anybody with anything. So I think it's a really valuable exercise, actually, for all leagues and teams to go through, is to really enrich their data and make sure that people do want to hear from them about the right messages.
Mm-hmm. And other than your basic data that you would all assume, address, email, cell phone, all that good stuff, what would you say is the most significant additional piece of data these guys are looking for?
I think we can get into some really interesting, particularly in the UK, where we've probably been doing this for a few more years. You can get into some really interesting data points, things like who Jamie Mitchell's favorite player is, for example. So I'm playing a particular game and I'm always selecting that particular player, just at the basic level. There's a high probability chance that player is my favorite player. So then if we talk about selling merchandise, for example, perhaps when I sell my next piece or send my next piece of marketing material, perhaps the shirt that arrives at the top of that email is my favorite player. And perhaps it's got my birthday as its number. So Mitchell 26 might be the shirt that arrives on the top of the email, for example. And it's that's a very basic level, but we can get far more granular than that, depending on how often and how frequently somebody plays a game and what they're prepared to share. So I think it certainly should be embraced, I think, as a positive rather than a negative, for sure.
Right. All right, let's take our one and only break, and we'll be right back with Jamie Mitchell, founder, CEO of Low6.
we give game day a whole new meaning.
Ready for business?
In brief.
Bloomberg Briefs puts the power of Bloomberg to work for you with over 15 industry-specific newsletters available only by subscription. Each offers proprietary data, researched and written by acknowledged experts. Top analysts, dedicated economists, senior business editors, all presented in a concise, uncluttered environment.
It gives me the edge I need.
Go to BloombergBriefs.com right now for your free 30-day trial.
What does it mean to be a leader?
It's taking my first solo flight.
At the University of North Dakota, we lead our own way.
And welcome back, everybody, to Double Down with Breslo. We are speaking with Jamie Mitchell, the founder and CEO of Low6, free-to-play games used essentially as a marketing device to help bring in customers, whether it be to gaming companies or non-gaming companies. Let's start talking a little bit about the games that you guys create and what's unique about them compared to a game that you would design that you would bet on.
Yeah, I think so. We have quite a big platform these days. So we're a venture capital backed business. So we really sort of, I suppose, committed to building a scalable platform that meant that we could produce lots of games for lots of different partners, be it TV and broadcast, be it rights holders, be it iGaming companies. And so we sort of have this mantra that if you can think about a game, we can build it. So any idea is a good idea with us. We have all of the staple kind of games that you would expect, things like pick'ems, brackets, spin the wheels, you name it. We've got those kind of standard games. But where we started to see a real, I suppose, growth opportunity was more in the mobile gaming sector. So not just free-to-play games that actually could be more akin to the Candy Crush type of game. So B2B to C opportunities with things like fantasy games where actually you can make in-app purchases for packs of players. For example, over in the UK, we did a big activation. And that kind of mobile revenue that you can drive through a mobile game is really interesting for us, for rights holders, particularly in Europe at the moment, where you don't necessarily need to convert them to a gambling partner. You very much can sort of look at them in their own right as a mobile game. And so we've been doubling down on mobile gaming as a potential sort of new revenue sphere for us.
So when you compare it to Candy Crush, are we talking about a game that's like Candy Crush as opposed to betting on, not betting, but having a sports related game?
Yeah, so we created a brand called Ultimate Fan as the test bed in the UK. Excuse me. An Ultimate Fan is a game where you can rip open a pack of cards, and in that pack there's players, sports players. So let's just use the Premier League as the example. You can then place those Premier League players into positions akin to the sort of a fantasy kind of game which runs each week. But then if you wanted to boost player props, etc., so double their points for this week, you can actually win rewards by completing challenges within that game, etc., to boost those players' scores. And you can also start to look at, would I like to trade my card with somebody else in the ecosystem? And starting to look at it, as I say, more away from a sort of traditional free-to-play game and more into an actual mobile game. And we've been testing that in the UK now for just over a year. And it's had some really interesting results. It became the top most downloaded app in the sports section of the App Store. It really did take people, I suppose they really love the game, actually, the sort of gaming side of it and these challenges which sit within inside the game. And so that for us has been a real passion project. And it was actually picked up by a couple of other brands which are quite keen to roll that out. So we just launched with Rivalry, which is an esports operator. We just launched with those guys in the Philippines with an NBA version of this game. And we're just talking to some other operators at the moment about launching across different jurisdictions. So sort of, again, not just traditional a game, more of an actual mobile game, which is quite interesting.
Are you pretty familiar with the Monopoly game that they do at McDonald's?
Absolutely. We love it over here. Yeah.
Yeah. I'm curious how much, whether that's been converted to a mobile game yet or not. And, does that get your mind ticking about, hey, we should be doing some major games for companies, big companies like McDonald's and mobile app?
Absolutely. And and if any time in the UK, if you go onto the App Store, that will not only be one of the top games, the Monopoly game in terms of downloads, it's also one of the top grossing games always. So the in-app purchase opportunities to, skip a level or get to the end of a level faster, etc. Very, very interesting, and does quite literally tens of millions in revenue.
Hold on a second, because this part is new to me. You're talking about Monopoly?
Yeah,
And
Monopoly.
you're talking about with McDonald's?
Not with McDonald's, but just Monopoly on its own was converted into a mobile game and does huge numbers. But absolutely, to your point around McDonald's and Monopoly, that's the perfect opportunity or example of a symbiotic relationship of two brands that are using gamification for the benefit of both brands. We've just launched a free-to-play Survivor game with Playmaker in Canada in conjunctions with Wendy's, the burger guys. Again, two brands partnering up using sport with a traditional Survivor game for data capture purposes. So lots of opportunity for brands to work with Low6 for the benefit of all of the partners, really.
Yeah. And, there's companies that have been around for a long time already doing that. I don't know who it was that did Monopoly, and I forget some of the names of the companies that were doing it, essentially sweepstakes games, right? But I mean, you guys consider yourselves to be playing in that world, basically, where you could be providing games to just about anybody.
Absolutely. And we, we're that's why I said before, we're holistically, I think we're very, very well set compared to maybe some of our competitors, which perhaps just focus on iGaming. We really do work with leagues, franchises, brands. And I do think that gives us and our team internally this focus on not just conversion to betting, but certainly, data capture, engagement, retention, monetization through different sort of routes, which is interesting.
So these game, you mentioned brackets, for instance, $1 million prize. Have you done that like for NCAA for a perfect bracket?
Yeah, we've done March Madness brackets, which is again probably a culture shock for us in the UK a couple of years ago. People tell you that NCAA and March Madness is a big event. When you go to America and see how big March Madness is, that really does take your breath away. And we've done multiple brackets now with, like you say, insurance sort of provided $1 million if you win. We work with various Learfield sort of properties to do their own pick'ems kind of platforms as well. So Michigan and people like those guys. And again, it's very much around fan engagement and bringing on those sort of data points about users.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I was going to ask you about insurance. I figured you probably did do that if you're offering a huge prize. That the way you guys, protect yourselves is just by insurance in case somebody wins. I mean, what are the odds of a perfect bracket? I know that it's astronomically high.
Yeah, millions to one, and I don't think we've ever got past the first round of a bracket with any fears. I mean, it's just so difficult, isn't it? And in particularly March Madness, it throws up some crazy results every single year, it seems, and it's it's a total lottery. But we were in New York last March, and we went for a pint at one of the pubs, and they'd even printed their bracket onto the actual pint glass. It's that big over in the States, and nobody was watching the professional game whilst the March Madness games were on. And until you see it, you can't really believe the scale of March Madness.
Yeah. Well, you got a lot of companies here that are trying to be, feeders to the sports books. I'm blanking on the term that's used when they're, when you're providing players to a sports book and they're paying you in return.
Affiliates, yeah.
Affiliates. I mean, it seems to me this is a perfect affiliate model, would be to bring in players through your games. I mean, are any affiliates using it?
Yeah, we do. We have a North American partner for affiliates. And again, we're pretty open about that. If there's the ability to add an affiliate message into a partner's game, we'll ask them the question, see if that's something they're looking to do. Clearly, it it works for some partners, it doesn't for another. But absolutely, we have a tried and tested sort of affiliate program within our business, and we again, we sort of have these three pillars of revenue, if you like. You have games, which we kind of build and license to people. We have a mobile gaming stream of revenue, which is in its early stage, but we're pretty excited about. And then we have that kind of affiliate piece of revenue, which for the right partners who are looking to cross people over is again pretty lucrative. Less so nowadays. I think in the early days when America was all about a land grab, you could earn some really big numbers through affiliate passover. It's settling down to sort of European levels now, and again, you look at people like DraftKings and FanDuel, they're very much about lifetime values of players now rather than just the player at any cost. You know, they're very sensible in their approach.
So when it comes to FanDuel and DraftKings, as far as their free-to-play games, are they doing them themselves as far as you know?
Yeah, I think DraftKings have always had a policy of doing as much in-house as they possibly can, and they've got an incredible tech team. And FanDuel, I believe they use various providers globally within their tech stack. We work with Flutter in Australia, and they're a great company to work with for sure.
Speaking of Australia, I just learned recently about their advertising ban. Have you run across this, and how are they dealing with that?
Yeah, I think it's going to be challenging.
When did it take effect?
I think it's in effect now, isn't it? Fairly recently. I think you'll probably see that in the new year really come into its own. It's going to be interesting because I think if you look at the UK as a precedent where things like football jersey sponsorship with any betting operator will cease to exist fairly soon in the next sort of 24 months, I think it'd be reticent to think that operators aren't going to want to spend on marketing in Australia. It's just now it won't be, overtly obvious where those dollars will be spent. So I guess you'll see more and more creative ways for operators to spend and attract players, but it certainly won't be huge linear TV ads and billboards anymore. It's going to be far more targeted, I guess.
Yeah, well, I guess could be good for your business because they need a new way of attracting players. And if you have something over here that is not a betting site, but it's this game, place where you can play games for free, and then they're paying as an affiliate thing, they'll spend their money that way instead of TV ads.
Well, I think the immediate opportunity, and this is just conjecture on my part, but the immediate opportunity for me would be, do you now, as an operator, partner with a team, for example, and we'll make a team up, we'll just call it Sydney A. Do you then partner with Sydney A and ask Sydney A to produce a free-to-play game? And come and play Sydney A's Pick'em today, and perhaps you're the affiliate advertising crossover within Sydney A's game, if that makes sense. I think those become the probably more opportunistic ways that people will start to market, whereas previously perhaps you just put a huge amount of LED advertising around Sydney A's sort of ground. It will still happen. It's crazy to think dollars won't be spent. It's just going to be more creative, and absolutely I think we see an opportunity there. I think it's I think a lot of the big operators out there have been predicting this would come for some time, so the strategies are already set and looking to go live pretty soon.
And a lot of discussion in Europe also about some type of ban?
I think, particularly in the UK, the Gambling Act review is very much in its early stages of sort of being implemented. I think continual regulatory pressure will actually make operators start to really think about how profitable the UK can be. And the likes of Africa, Asia, starting to look far more attractive, I would think, to many operators than running such a prohibitive sort of operation in the UK, which is terribly difficult to operate in, I'm sure, at the moment, with all of the different regulatory requirements that you have to meet these days. It's very difficult.
And what about taxes? Where is UK on taxes?
Still very high, and I think there's more. I read the other day that there's potentially more happening in this election build up that we're getting, I think we'll see some more announcements about a tax change for operators in the UK. So I think all of Europe is very much under scrutiny as it has been for a long time. Certainly the Netherlands and Germany are difficult places to operate, particularly the Nordics. It's very much a trying landscape, I think. But I guess what we'll see from here is it will follow in America, right? It'll eventually catch up, and I think it'll do it at pace. Safer gambling protocols, etc., will all arrive. They already have, but I'm sure they'll be there quicker than they ever were in Europe.
Yeah. Well, as you know, everything's state by state here, so it's going to be interesting to see. I know a lot of people are up in arms about the tax rate in New York, which I think is like 50%, way higher than other places. But my guess is that's probably about where UK is. Is that where UK is?
Yeah, I'm not sure the actual rate itself, but I 50% is pretty hefty, isn't it?
Yeah. All right, awesome. Appreciate it. Where can people go learn more about your company? I know you're mostly B2B, but tell them about your new app game, etc.
Yeah, sure. Certainly, if you Google low6.com, you can find us. You'll see who we're working with, kind of games we do, some case studies, etc. And feel free to reach out myself on LinkedIn, as are most of the team. And we'd love to speak to anybody who's interested in some sort of free-to-play gaming. And happy to talk. Yeah,
cool. Appreciate your time, Jamie. I'll let you go get your pint. I know it's about 6 o'clock there, and I noticed you're starting to shake a little bit.
It's 5 o'clock somewhere. Absolutely. Thanks a lot. Cheers.
All right, Jamie Mitchell, CEO, founder of Low6. Thanks so much, and thank you all for watching and listening to Double Down with Breslo. We will be back soon with another great interview. Take care, everyone.
I want you to smash that like button.